Every year, the City Club hosts a free speech essay contest for high school students. And all of this week, we've been featuring some of the winning essays from that contest. And so today, we are going to feature the 9th and 10th grade first place winner, Miss Maxine Gilligan from Hathaway Brown School, who's going to read her essay. So if I could have her come up, and she will do that. This contest is sponsored by Hope and Stanley Adelstein. Those of you who have been members of the City Club know what great longtime friends of the City Club Hope and Stanley were, so we're so grateful for their support to keep their memory alive in this contest. So Maxine, come on up, and please give her a warm City Club welcome.
Thank you. Karl Popper's paradox of tolerance states that if society allows for unlimited tolerance, it will lose its ability to be tolerant in the first place. Right now, it seems the climate of free speech in the United States is becoming closer and closer to the image of this paradox. As communication has expanded rapidly, hate speech, abuse, and the spread of misinformation have become far more commonplace than ever before. Yet our country has failed to provide any effective solutions to these issues. Instead, in an effort to maintain freedom of speech, we have become complacent in the wake of their expansion. However, as these issues have taken a turn for the worst with increasingly vast amounts of false news, Russian influence in the 2016 election, and growing political polarization, society and the government have begun to propose extreme solutions, even if that means putting free speech in jeopardy. Our own complacency in the problems that arise from freedom of speech is the greatest threat to freedom of speech in the United States, as it has fostered solutions that directly threaten the First Amendment. It is essential that the United States ends this complacency and resolves the issues around protected speech while ensuring that the First Amendment will continue to be fully upheld. Misinformation in the media has been a persistent issue arising from freedom of speech for decades, but its prominence has increased significantly in the past few years. An MIT study from 2018 found that incorrect information in social media has allowed for incorrect articles to reach people 6 times faster than factual stories. The threat posed by this rise of false news stories has already triggered a global trend of government censorship. Russia, Malaysia, Egypt, Kenya, the United Kingdom, and France have introduced laws in recent years that would criminalize the production and spread of incorrect news. Although the United States has not passed any major regulations thus far, it has also started to experience similar trends. A California bill had been proposed in 2017 to ban the knowing publication or creation of deceptive or false media, and a growing number of lawmakers are advocating for similar legislation. While a serious response is certainly warranted to combat misinformation, these measures pose a direct threat to freedom of speech. Allowing for the United States government to regulate what may be said in the media would be a blatant infringement of First Amendment rights. However, as long as the misinformation in the news continues, these criminalizing solutions will continue to appear unless methods of restricting misinformation without limiting freedom of speech are created and promoted. The growing amount of hate speech and abusive language has faced similar responses. The expanse of social media platforms has made it easier for this type of speech to be spoken and promoted, causing the amount of racism and bigotry on these platforms to continually increase. Since no effort has taken place to reduce this type of speech, private social media corporations have taken it upon themselves to censor content considered harmful or offensive. Platforms will remove content from their websites in accordance with a set of guidelines, usually restricting violence, nudity, racism, and other topics considered to be obscene or offensive. Although this is intended to reduce hatred and bigotry, it ends up only hurting those without influence while giving power to the already powerful. Misuse of this censorship has resulted in important voices against the spread of hatred being silenced. For example, The Guardian found Twitter accounts of journalists reporting on torture and genocide being shut down, and according to the Washington Post, Facebook has taken down the posts of many women of color sharing their experiences with harassment. In the meantime, this type of censorship gives significant power to the company executives who have complete control over what is allowed to be shared and what will be restricted. This censorship is completely unregulated by the government, and until this country is able to reduce hate speech and bigotry while reducing the ability of companies to limit freedom of speech, it will likely continue. In order to prevent freedom of speech from being violated by government and private censorship, we need to tackle our own complacency in the issues that are provoking such a radical response in the first place. While offensive and factually incorrect speech is protected by the First Amendment, the U.S. should target the roots of these issues with comprehensive and constitutional solutions. Instead of outright banning misinformation, the government should promote news literacy by supporting journalism in society and by introducing programs in public schools aimed at teaching students about analyzing current events and improving critical thinking. To reduce hate speech, it should create a goal of reducing hatred as a whole in society and to reduce corporate control over freedom of speech on private platforms. It should mandate increased transparency on censorship and foster competition to increase user choice. Creating effective solutions that uphold constitutional rights is the best thing to do to combat attacks on freedom of speech that come as solutions to abusive speech. If we continue to do nothing constitutional and effective to reduce misinformation and hatred, solutions that threaten freedom of speech will continue to be proposed and eventually even enforced. Free speech will inevitably cause issues that pose a threat to society, but it is essential that we target the causes of the threats themselves rather than the key principle of freedom of speech. The United States democracy is founded on the principle that the rights of its citizens should be protected at all costs, so it is essential that everything possible is done to guarantee free speech. If significant restrictions of speech are allowed to serve as solutions to the problems with expression, we will undermine the core values of our country. We cannot afford this to happen, and effective solutions are absolutely necessary. Thank you.